Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Hello, everyone. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, homosexuality was not uncommon in ancient Greece and Rome. That means that homosexuality has been around for at least thousands of years. Is being gay a choice? Or is our sexuality determined at birth? Well, let's get down to business. The business of being Black starts now. Are we born this way? Please welcome celebrity barber Alhaji Cisse. Hi, Alhaji.
Hello, Tammy. How are you?
Good. The co-founder and chief scientific officer of Indigenous AI and Indigenous Health Group, Dr. Bradford Wilson. Hi, Dr. Wilson.
Good afternoon. Pleasure.
Biblical teacher, Mrs. Joy Flowers. Hi, Mrs. Flowers.
Hello.
And actor and writer, Anthony Reed. Hey, Anthony.
Hello.
Happy for you all to be here. The question that's traditionally asked on the business of being Black is, why should Black people care? And today is no different. Why should Black people care if we were born this way or not, Dr. Wilson?
Sure, Tammy. First and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to join this distinguished panel today to talk about this. And it's one that I think needs to be approached with, respect, first and foremost, but also with, compassion and understanding, right? And we should care about this because as a people, we already face enough challenges, just being Black. And, in addition to that, there's additional marginalization that can happen, to groups from particularly the LGBTQIA community. And as members of both of those communities, Black and, alternative lifestyle communities, there can be, a multiplying effect in terms of the impact it has on our everyday life. So, with that in mind, looking at this in terms of its importance to us as a people, as a population, is because it impacts us on a day-to-day.
Yes. Anthony, why should Black people care if we were born this way?
Ooh, that's a good one. We should care because gay people, lesbian and bisexual, we've always been the backbone of civil rights movement. Also even the Black Lives Matters. And we also are cousins, grandchildren, mothers, sons, daughter, nieces, and nephews. So they should care because we also are human too. And we deserve to be loved unconditionally and also be supported as well too. So yes, Black people should care about who we are as individuals. So yes, Black people should care.
Alhaji, why should Black people care?
Black people should care because a lot of us are Black ourselves. I think that we have enough against us as a people. I think that we are stronger as a community when we are united. So I think that Black people should also care because I think it just makes us a lot smarter. Sorry.
It's okay. You're good.
Okay.
Don't sweat it.
Yeah,
Don't sweat it.
Yeah.
I mean, you make a point when you say we are much stronger united. I mean, there's no disagreement there. When a world unites, it makes it better for all of us. Mrs. Flowers, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here again. Why should Black people care if we were born this way or not?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I believe that Black people should care because as a whole, it deals with the person. It deals with the individual, the mindset, the spirit, the body, the soul, and our identity. A lot of times we get lost in the rigmarole, or we're told we should act this way, we should feel this way, or silence, your thoughts, silence how you process, silence your internal being. And the thing about it is that we're connected to one another, but we also have a purpose. And because our lives are bigger than ourselves, we should care about someone's mental health. We should care about their natural health. And I think it's important to just love one another unconditionally.
Our lives are bigger than ourselves. I like that. I like that a lot. So I want to go to the beginning and get a little personal here, right off the back, y'all. That's how I do, all up in your business. How old were you when you were first attracted to someone? Anthony, since your eyes got big on that one.
For me, I was 8 years old. This is back in the 90s. I ain't gonna tell you how long it was, but I would say 8 years old. I was attracted to this young guy named Chris. He was like an older brother to me because he was the only child. So I was attracted to him, and I thought it was kind of weird, like, oh, okay, he's handsome, but I'm feeling this way. But also, have a little girlfriend in school, you know what I'm saying? So I would say for 8 years old, for me, that's my first attraction to men. I mean, boys at the time was 8 years old.
Well, I guess I'm asking whether it was a man or a woman, because I think I heard you say you had a girlfriend at the age of 8.
Okay,
so you were also attracted to women, or were you not, and it just seemed like the right thing to do?
So that's a good point. For me, I when you're in school, in grammar school, I mean, a kid, you have like little girlfriends in school, like little girls that like you like them. And so for me, grew up in the South Side of Chicago back in the early 90s, it wasn't, good to be, gay. So I know why I was attracted to this boy, like, what is this? This is kind of strange. This is kind of weird in a sense, but I could understand it at the time. So I just found myself attracted to this young man named Chris at the time when I was 8 years old. But yes, I had a little girlfriend in school, but that was like the norm for little boys to have little girlfriends back then, back in those days. So hope I answered the question right.
Alhaji, your first time being attracted to someone?
I recall being as young as 6 years old. At that time, I actually was, I had thoughts of the future. I had kind of projected in the future, and I always saw myself with what looked like a husband. And at that time, there was no examples, and this was in the 80s. There was no examples. I had no examples of that in my household. I had a mother and a father. Everything that I saw as far as romance was concerned was heterosexual couples. But I remember I came across a picture of a man that was probably inappropriate. It was inappropriate at the time because it was pornographic. But I remember being very drawn to that
photograph.
Yes. And I also remember even having a schoolmate and there being some sort of connection to him as well. And again, we both had parents, 2 parent households, but I still had that connection with them.
Right. Joy?
Well, for myself, I found myself being very attracted to boys at an early age. And I honestly think, and this is just me, I honestly think it's because my grandfather spoke it over my life. So when my mom found out she was pregnant with me, he was like, "You're going to have a fast girl." And she was like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not going to have no fast girl." But my mom and my dad told me that when I was born, I only allowed men to hold me. If my aunts, my grandmother, any woman could not hold me. If my uncles, my cousins, any man, I would just fall asleep. I would be so comfortable. So I remember the first crush I had, I was like in kindergarten and he was in 7th grade. And I was just like, he is just everything. And then I saw Michael Jackson. So it was just a lot. So I mean, I remember being very attracted to men, probably like I had my first boyfriend, I was in kindergarten.
At 7 years old?
No, like I mean, I'd be attracted to him, but I would say that's like playground. I don't know if that's like, you go out on a date, but it's just kind of like he picks a flower out of the field and brings it to you, and like you're my boyfriend
now. No, I'm going to marry now. Yeah, of course. So, Dr. Wilson, what is the normal age of a person to begin their attraction to someone?
That's a good question. I think that's going to be dependent upon a lot of environmental factors. I personally, in the first grade, also, I had my first girlfriend in the first grade. We used to plan bringing the plate, the recess equipment back in together, and then we could sneak a kiss while the teachers weren't around. I think that's environmentally driven with terms of development, in terms of puberty. That's actually usually driven by body fat percentages in young females. So
wow.
Yeah, so when young ladies reach a certain percent of body fat in their body, it usually triggers the production of hormones, because actually hormones are synthesized or manufactured from cholesterol, right? So cholesterol is a starting point. So to make hormones in males and females. So when the body fat hits a certain level, then that usually triggers the onset of puberty in young ladies, and then that's when they can start to develop.
I didn't have much body fat when I was in kindergarten, but I was certainly attracted to Heath, a white boy named Heath. So I can tell you that, but my body fat was darn near zero in kindergarten. So I don't know where that came from. We're going to continue this conversation on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. So don't go anywhere, because we will be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack. The business of being Black today is, are we born this way? Please welcome celebrity barber Alhaji Cisse. Hi, Alhaji. The co-founder and chief scientific officer of Indigenous AI and Indigenous Health Group, Dr. Bradford Wilson. Biblical teacher Mrs. Joy Flowers is with us, and actor and writer Anthony Reed is along for the ride too. Thank you for being here. So let's get down to business, and I'm going to start it with Dr. Bradford here. Does the way babies develop in the womb determine whether they are gay or straight?
Well, that's a great question. I wouldn't say that it's completely determined what their sexual preferences will be, but I think the uterine environment has a big influence and impact on the way the brain develops, and it's kind of driven by hormones. So if you, there's a difference between men's and women's brains in terms of how they're wired. So, and that can be influenced by hormones in utero, and sometimes environmental factors can influence how that goes. And if there is kind of an inconsistency, meaning that if you have more brain development, it's more like a female's brain in a male, or vice versa, and there can be some implications of that.
Because I've always heard that the X chromosomes are mixed with the Y chromosomes, and this is what creates gay people. How much truth is there to that?
Well, the Y chromosome has to do with maleness in terms of developing into a male, and that Y chromosome, that there's genes on the Y chromosome that are essential for that, and there's a process that starts off based on those genes being present on the Y chromosome, and then it involves hormone generation, right? Testosterone versus estrogen to develop into a male, and developing the organs to go along with it.
So is there any truth though to the fact that if that's the X and the Y chromosomes mix a little bit, that makes a person gay?
Well, again, when you talk about behavior and what behaviors are kind of born with, those are usually dealing with survival, right? You don't have to teach a baby to cry, right? You don't have to teach fight or flight if your life is in danger. Those are things you just know innately, versus kind of behavior that's more learned. And usually those.
So are you suggesting that whether you're attracted to a man or woman is learned behavior and not that fight or flight type of behavior?
Right. I think it's a different type of behavior based on then a survival behavior. Again, you don't have to, teach reproduction, to people how to reproduce. They kind of know how to do that instinctually. And so those behaviors that are kind of more associated with, survival, things related to survival, are the ones that usually you think about when you talk about behaviors that you're born with.
What's interesting is I've always wondered how people know how to reproduce. I was like, where did that start? How did we know how to have sex? I don't understand that. But at any rate, that's a whole nother show. But since you brought it up, I, I, I want to ask, because as we rounded the panel and asked them when their first time being attracted to someone was, everyone said it was around the age of 6 or 7, which is pretty young. I said kindergarten, and Mrs. Flowers also said very, very early because her grandfather spoke it over her. I don't know if that if that was good or bad, Joy. I don't know. Maybe he should have spoke millions of dollars in success over you. But at any rate, so for me, that doesn't suggest that we are taught to choose a specific type of partner. It sounds like it's innate. Anthony?
I totally agree with that. I believe in two factors. I do believe people are born gay, and I believe it's also environmental as well too. Like survival or things you've been through in life that maybe you became gay or lesbian or bisexual. But I do believe, for me, in a sense, I was born gay. My mother said it when I was a kid. She could tell that I was going to be gay without even knowing I was gay. So I do believe that people are born gay. It's in them. But as you get in time, that's 5 years old and up, that's when it hits you okay, I'm attracted to guys or I'm attracted to girls. So I believe it's already in you if you're straight or gay. And within time, it will hit you which side you go to, the girls or the guys. So I believe both factors. You are born gay and also it's environmental as well.
Alhaji?
I'm with Anthony. I do feel that just like Dr. Wilson said, I think that there is some science that could be behind how people identify. But I do feel that most people are on a spectrum. And I think that with people who are on a spectrum, the environmental factors can then play a part, i.e. there's people who are identify as bisexual and they are split right in between. But I also feel that, there are some people who maybe lean one way, heavier one way or the other. So with those instances, I feel that the environment maybe play a factor. Maybe it's maybe you're around certain people that you feel safer to be yourself. I think that we see a lot of people nowadays coming out or being open at a much earlier age because it is safer. We see much more examples on television, movies, characters.
And with celebrities and their children as well, who are kind of standing up and standing out to say, hey, we discovered that our child, was gay and we're supporting that and we want them to be in a supportive environment. Joy, let's talk about this. When you say your grandfather kind of prophesied that you would be a fast girl. That's what they used to say back then. Oh, look at that fast ass little girl. And I hate it. And I oftentimes talk about on my show how that is a horrible consequence of Black culture. How they consider girls fast or, call little girls hoes at very, very early ages. But still don't do that for the young boys. And so we ourselves have self-sabotaged the way that America looks at young Black women. We can be responsible for that, along with how America is already. But I want to ask about the churches having a history of trying to pray the gay away. Is there a such thing? Because if your grandfather could prophesy over you, could the gay be prayed away in terms of those who are gay?
I believe that it really is twofold. And what I mean is, first I'll expound. If someone has a desire to actually seek Christ, they will begin to not necessarily hold on to their old identity, but they're diving in to find out what is it about this Jesus that makes him so sufficient to where I don't need anything else. So I think when people are on a hot pursuit for Christ, they may not necessarily lose their affections that they have or where they feel that they are attracted to. However, it will not be about a desire to pursue the lust of the flesh. In that, I have a good friend, and he lived his life as a homosexual for, I would say, over 20 years. But he says the goal of getting saved was not to relinquish his homosexuality. It was because he needed to be made whole. And in doing so, now he has a desire to be with a woman and things like that. It starts with the mind. If you have a made up mind and you're like, look, I desire to move towards the things of God. I think where the stigma in the church comes in at, though, is that they do try to pray it away and not necessarily get to understand the rationale of a person's mindset or what they've been through or the trauma or how this came about to be a thing.
Yeah.
I want to interject. Joy, I do have a question. You did mention that that the goal is to seek Christ and to relinquish the desire to be with the flesh. But the problem that I have with that is that, does that not work the same with if I decide to be I am heterosexual and I want to be with, and I'm attracted to that sex or whatever, and I'm seeking Christ. I mean, with marriage, you're supposed to consummate the marriage. Is that not correct? And that would include sex. And I'm assuming that if I'm married, I would still have sexual desires. Does that mean that I'm not Christ-like because I still have lustful thoughts?
Let's answer that question when we return on Business of Being Black on FOXSOUL. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. The business of being Black today is, are we born this way? Al-Haji had a question posed to Joy because Joy mentioned that there are people who seek Christ in a real way and become Christ-like, and through that, they no longer have these homosexual urges. And I think Al-Haji was saying, but isn't that why everyone comes to Christ? Everyone who comes to Christ wants to seek something. If you are a philanderer, you want to stop sleeping around with everybody. If you are an adulteress, you want to stop, being an adulteress. If you're a murderer, you want to stop murdering people. So what makes it different, I guess, is what you were asking, right, Al-Haji? What makes it different?
Well, I think even some of the things that you mentioned, Tammi, I'm assuming those were sins that you were mentioning. And I guess I just have a different ideology. I don't feel that who I am as a person who is in love with the same sex is a sin. So, like seeking Christ, and I'm just basing my statement on what she said, which was, when you seek Christ, you're supposed to kind of, I guess, denounce your desires of the flesh. Well, if I'm heterosexual and I get married, I have to consummate my marriage. At least that's what, at least I thought that's what the idea is.
Yeah, but I think when you get married, you're supposed to procreate. You're supposed to have sex.
Yeah.
When you're married.
Yes, I agree with that. But at the same time, I mean, that's still a desire. That's still, I can get married as well to a man. It's legal. And
Indeed.
Maybe I can't procreate the natural way, but I can still consummate my marriage. I can still.
So then let me go here with it, since you brought up sins. Why is homosexuality considered a sin, Joy?
Because it's the unnatural way of God. It declares in Romans that there is a natural use for reproduction, and that is with a male and a female. So in that, it's considered going against the standard that the Creator, the Elohim, has set. So if he can speak life into existence and things become, and this is the standard that he tells us, hey, this is the way that is correct. For example, if you're in school and you say, okay, I want to write my name this way. And the teacher makes a correction and says, hey, that's not conducive. We can't read your name if you're writing it backwards. But the standard is that you write it forward or you write it in cursive. It's just saying that when God sets a standard and you desire to follow the things of God, then you desire to please him. When you're in a relationship with anyone, it is not your objective to hurt them. It is not your objective to talk bad about them. It's not your objective to make them feel belittled or less than. Like if I say I love my husband and I'm not here at home, or I'm sneaking out on the weekends, or I'm doing things that I know intentionally hurt him, then do I really love my husband? So that's the thing.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I agree with that to a certain degree. Like, people all want to put homosexual as the worst sin that only God always talks about. But there are other sins that he's also talking about as well, like mixing a certain fabric together, resting on a Sabbath, which is a Saturday, which we go to church on a Sunday, which is considered a pagan holiday, eating certain food. And as a woman, if you're on your monthly cycle, you're supposed to make a tent outside and sleep outside because you consider unclean. So there's other things in the Bible that God has spoken about that is unnatural, it's a sin, and things we're supposed to do. And I feel like people pick and choose, like, okay, because we're gay or we can't produce kids. Oh, that's the sin. It's like, I feel it's kind of like there are other sins that God also mentioned in the morality, Leviticus, and so on, that is also equal to homosexual as being abomination as well too. And people don't want to talk about that part.
But the topic of the show is concerning can you pick your gender or the homosexuality. There are other sins. I can definitely attest to that. So
I agree with that. But people, like what you said, like as far as like it's considered unnatural or it's against God. They're always trying to say there's other sins that God also spoke about. There's also abomination as well too.
Yeah, but you pulled from the Old Testament. You pulled from under the law. You were referring to the 613 laws that were declared by Moses for the people to follow. And that's the reason why Christ came, is because there's no way for us to be able to adhere to 613 laws. That's where grace and mercy yet abound. So what I was referring to, I pulled out of the New Testament. So that's under the new covenant. But you were saying about the fabrics and cotton can't be mixed with this, and the menstruating, that's old covenant, that's Old Testament. There's a reason why Christ came on the scene. And so what I was referring to was in addressing the question that Tammi Mack had asked, well, why is homosexuality a sin, or can this be prayed away? And so in regards to Al-Haji, I wasn't saying that was for everyone. I'm saying I know of people who have given their testimony of overcoming the sins that they used to indulge in because they no longer have that desire. Is that the same applicable answer for every individual? No, it is not.
The LGBTQ community has faced harassment and abuse throughout the history of the world. So if being gay was a choice, why would anyone choose that path if they know it's going to make their life more difficult? What do you think it is about choosing to be gay, Dr. Wilson?
I don't think it's always a matter of choosing more difficult, because it's just a matter, because the folks who have who feel this way have the options of whether or not they want to disclose that information. So they can choose to not disclose it, and they wouldn't necessarily make their lives more difficult in that regard. So they had the option of doing that. I mean, that brings up the conversation about whether or not they're living in their truth, quote unquote, but that's another conversation. But they have the option of whether or not to disclose it, as opposed to being discriminated against for reasons like your skin color, for example, something that you don't have a choice in. You cannot you can't take off, you can't, not disclose per se, quote unquote, so to speak.
Alhaji, the legendary writer James Baldwin, who was Black and gay, once said, everybody's journey is individual. If you fall in love with a boy, you fall in love with a boy. The fact that many Americans consider it a disease says more about them than it does about homosexuality. What kind of obstacles have you faced because of your sexuality?
Um, I think overall, I think I was born at a great time. I think that there's been a lot of progress in society. So I haven't had anything that was detrimental to me. I did endure some teasing throughout my grade schooling, which I think affected me in a lot of ways that I felt that I couldn't really shine as much as I wanted to. I'm sure I've been discriminated against, but it's so hard to tell. I'm Black as well, so I mean, it's just like I don't know.
Anthony?
I agree with him mostly. I've been picked on. For me, I choose my happiness first, to be myself. Yes, I was, teased and bullied and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I feel like people can tell that I'm gay, so it's obvious. But overall, I still choose my happiness. And like you said, being Black, I feel like I get more discriminated being Black than being gay. I can go to, I used to deliver here in New York, and I go to certain buildings, and, people won't let me in because they think I'm going to rob them, or I'm on a train and white women holding their purses, So I feel like I get more discriminated against because I'm Black than being gay. So that's how I feel right now.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, come right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on FOXSOUL. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Hello. The Business of Being Black today is, are we born this way? Please welcome celebrity barber Alhaji Cisse, the co-founder and chief scientific officer of Indigenous AI and Indigenous Health Group, Dr. Bradford Wilson, biblical teacher, Mrs. Joy Flowers, and actor and writer, Anthony Reed. All right. So the Institute of Molecular Medicine in Finland recently concluded that there is no gay gene, but they said same-sex sexual behavior is a natural part of our diversity as a species. So if it's natural, doesn't that mean it's innate, Dr. Wilson?
Correct. And that's exactly the opinion that I share. And it's kind of related to the survival, kind of argument and justification, and that there wouldn't be a genetic program for this because without the utilization of technology, it's not possible for this behavior to sustain or enable the species to survive in terms of human beings, because reproduction is not possible through this behavior. So that's why there wouldn't be a program for it, quote unquote, in terms of being a gene. But he does speak to what I mentioned earlier in terms of there being some biological insights on this in terms of attraction and in brain development and how that plays out and how we see that expressed in terms of different people that we see.
Right. So Joy, this study suggests that same-sex sexual behavior is innate.
Well, honestly, everyone's story is different. Everyone's personal experience is different. I have heard many testimonies from various people that it entered in through something, usually through something traumatic that happened to them, whether someone molested them or possibly, like, for example, I know of a young man and he began to, well, I didn't meet him until he was an adult, but in him being an adult, he found comfort in wearing women's clothing, pantyhose, stockings, different things like that. Come to find out, when you do some history or you talk to him, it's like, well, how did you think you would look cute in a bustier or whatever. And so his story was, you know, my mom and I were struggling, and at night she would put me to bed, and when I would get up because I had nightmares, she would be gone. Turns out his mother was prostituting. So therefore she's trying to pay the bills, and he's feeling alone and abandoned. So now he's struggling with abandonment, feeling rejected, feeling like he's alone. So what started is he started sleeping in his mother's bed. Then from there, it's like, well, let me try on her robe or her shirt. And the scent of her being next to him brought him comfort. So in that, he found an identity. I want to be just like my mom. Maybe I can go out and make money. Certain things happen to certain people at different times and seasons of their lives. And it opens a door to allow abandonment, rejection, and different things to manifest within somebody. So I would say that everyone's story is different. Everyone has a reason.
Alhaji, I'm interested in your story, since Joy says everyone's story is different. You said that you had a mother and father who were heterosexual. You had a wonderful suburbia life, but you were still attracted to men. So how do you explain that? It doesn't sound like it was a traumatic life, is what I'm suggesting.
No, it was
but
not
I could
traumatic.
be wrong.
No.
So
okay, so thank you, Tammy. I appreciate you saying that or highlighting that. Yeah, I didn't have that experience. However, I don't disagree with Joy. There are people who have had traumatic experiences that have influenced them and their sexuality. I don't know about the cross-dressing or maybe feeling trans or whatever. I can't speak to that. Yeah, I think my mother would say that it was innate. She's told me before that when I was a little boy, younger than 6, that I was displaying sexual behavior with the little boy that was lived up the street from us. So I don't know. And I mean, when you're that young, you don't know that you're doing anything wrong. Right. You're just drawn that way. I can't say that I felt female or, but I think that, I have my essence, and I think that other children, sometimes I can see that maybe they might be somewhere on the spectrum, that they could potentially be homosexual. I think we were born this way. And as far as religion is concerned and spirituality, I am a firm believer that God makes us all who we are, and that we are here to color the world. And I feel that we have contributed to society in a very impactful way.
Anthony, do you have a traumatic story that perhaps led you to being gay?
So I wasn't raised by my parents. My parents were in and out because of their addictions they had. I was raised by an uncle, an auntie, so different family members through my whole childhood. But I've been through some stuff as a kid and even as a teenager, but I feel like me being gay was inside me already, as a child. So
yeah, I have to say, I hear this story all of the time where people say that homosexuality is a result of something traumatic that's happened in your childhood. But if you sit around and you talk to several people, and most of us, I have to say, most of us, probably half of America, has been through something traumatic in their childhood. And most of us are not gay. So I'm not exactly sure why the trauma got thrown on to the LGBTQ community, as if people who are straight have not had traumatic events in their lives. I certainly have had a traumatic event in my life, but I'm straight. So how come I didn't end up gay? I was molested, Dr. Wilson. How come I didn't end up gay?
I think it's a combination of nature and nurture. And the nature part, I don't think is terms of that. The part of the nature is not the sexual preference. I think the part of the nature is the brain development, right? And the brain anatomy that can lead to some differences in, kind of personality and thought processes and things of that nature. But as a child, the concept of what homosexuality is not one that's understood. But at that point, a person could still potentially, have a brain that's wired in a way that's a little bit incongruent with their genetic gender, right? So I think, and then you put that in the context of some environmental trauma, particularly sexual trauma, and then it could potentially lead to, some, a continuation or lead to or manifest in different ways in different people, as a result. And the way that everyone responds to trauma and responds to stress is going to be different. It's going to vary. Some people are better at managing stress than others, and some people have better, coping skills to deal with, trauma. So I think those kind of factors kind of come into play when we're talking about, the impact of trauma on people at a young age, whether it be sexual trauma or not.
Yeah. I just want to ask flat out, in your opinion, doctor, can a person be born gay?
I don't think that's the case. And again, I think that a person can be born with a brain that's wired more closely to the opposite gender, right?
Wouldn't that be born gay?
But that's not gay because the baby doesn't understand what being gay means.
But the baby does understand as it develops what attraction is. You feel the attraction to a male or a female. You feel that attraction. It's us that gave it the label gay, right?
Right, and that brings a very, very important point, in that this is all based on what we say. Based on what we say is quote unquote normal. And that's what we talk about mental health and what's acceptable in terms of our society. It's all based on what the agreed upon norm is. If there was more open-mindedness on what is normal, it would eliminate a lot of these issues that we have.
Let's take a quick break. Come right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and the Business of Being Black today has been Are We Born This Way? With my guest, celebrity barber Alhaji Cisse, the co-founder and chief scientific officer of Indigenous AI and Indigenous Health Group, Dr. Bradford Wilson, biblical teacher, Mrs. Joy Flowers, and actor and writer Anthony Reed. Thank you all for being here and having this discussion. I really appreciate the different perspectives. The first question I want to ask is, well, I have to talk about this because, yeah, I really wanted to mention this. The animal rights group, PETA, says that some animals are heterosexual, some are homosexual. Did y'all know that? Did you know that? Yeah. Some animals are homosexual and some are in between. Some examples they give are penguins, dolphins, elephants, giraffes, and lions. Certainly animals can't choose to be gay, or can they? Can a lioness decide that she is attracted to that sexy lioness over there? Is that how this works, doctor?
So I think that this speaks, directly to a point I made earlier about this being what we say it is, meaning we've created constructs around these concepts about what sexuality is.
Let me understand. I want to make this clear because I heard what you said. So are you suggesting that if we normalized, or if being gay, what we call gay, if we normalize that, if we said and understood and agreed that men could be with men and women could be with women, this would not be a big deal?
It's a problem because people make it a problem, right? As we see, nature has no issue with this. Mother Nature has no issue with it. It's us as sentient higher beings, higher animals that have created these concepts and, created these, these categories to put people in that have created the problem. Right. It could be a part of normal range of behavior if we say it is.
Right. Joy, how do you feel about this? I'm assuming the giraffes, are homosexual because they can't really, the male can't really reach it to get it. Okay, let me be quiet. Let me stop. Before people start coming at me. No, seriously, how do you feel about this, Joy? Animals, penguins are homosexuals.
Honestly, to be honest, I'm just kind of baffled by it. Like to say like, oh, well, this giraffe is gay and this penguin is gay and they have these attractions. I mean, I can't speak for the animal kingdom. I don't know what did they feel abandoned? Did they feel like, oh, I like the color of the stripe down their back? I can't speak on something like that. I really don't have a say about animals and their sexuality in a sense.
But if God makes no mistakes, right?
Right. God doesn't make a mistake, but I do understand that we choose. Like you had stated earlier when I was explaining about the individual with the trauma, right? You said, well, I've been through stuff and how come I didn't choose that? Because you didn't choose that. Everyone's situation is different. I know siblings who all lived in the same house. One is like very successful, makes 6 figures a year. The other one's on the streets. Why? Because that was a choice. Did they all have the same trauma? Yes. Each one of those females were raped by their stepfather who's supposed to protect them. And three of them were the ones being raped. So one of them chose to deal with it, get some help, and now she makes 6 figures. The other one got strung out on drugs, all in the same house, all had the same trauma. So with that, God does not make mistakes. Do we have choices? Absolutely. Do we choose? We do choose. We can choose to indulge in our flesh and to do the things that we desire to do, or we can say, hey, let me see if there is a correct way of doing it. A lot of times people don't want to be corrected because they like what feels good, or they feel like, hey, I make the rules for my life. I choose what I want and I do what I want. So
tell us about Tax Nerd, Joy.
Oh,
I just jumped. Bam, bam.
So with Tax Nerd is a company that my husband has launched in which we are tax providers. We not only do that, we do business startup, business incorporation, and we help you to regulate money, shelter money, and pay little to no taxes.
Oh, wow. Sounds like I need that service. Dr. Bradford, Indigenous AI and Indigenous Health Group. Talk about it.
Sure. We're focused on driving health equity by, reducing and eliminating health disparities through leveraging, genomics and next generation sequencing and other molecular techniques, and also by increasing diversity in genetic research and in clinical trials around health disparity diseases. And we're undertaking this effort because we've been talking about these health disparities for decades now, and COVID has highlighted them in terms of the disparate, in terms of death rates. And we decided that it's time for us to do something as Black and African American scientists, researchers, and clinicians. And we decided to pull together and create a community and create a platform for us to really drive discovery in this area to really impact our populations across the diaspora.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Alhaji, you are the creator of this body deodorizer that foams up. Come on, sugar bum.
Yeah,
I do want my bum to smell like sugar. That sounds like a pleasant and delightful smell.
It is very pleasant. Actually, it makes you smell like nothing at all. But you can use it in your underarms. You can use it in your private zones. You can use it in your booty, your feet. It is patent pending. It is something that came to me during the pandemic. As a barber, I had to reduce business during the pandemic. So the creative wheels started spinning, and I created something that's been very successful.
Why does it have to foam? What's the foam? What's with the foam?
The foam makes it easy to place because it's something that you wash off. You don't keep it on your skin like a deodorant, where deodorant get on your clothing or clog your pores, and oftentimes most people say that you still smell, but this is actually like a pre-wash. I use it while I'm brushing my teeth, or you can do it however you like. You get in the shower, you wash it off, you need nothing all day. You smell like nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think I want to smell like something, though.
You can use your fragrance. You
give
can
us
use
some scented bums.
Okay, well, we'll work on that.
Anthony, at the edge of town, you star in it. Tell us about it.
So I got cast this new play called At the Edge of Town. It's coming to New York in February, all until April. Is one of my friends wrote this play. Her name is Colette Brown. She's a good writer. And I played Joshua, who has a third grade education. It's a story about Black farmers in the South in 1936 who are fighting for their land. And so I'm very excited for this. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm also excited. I'm also writing my own story as well. So I'll be posting everything on my Instagram pretty soon. The dates for the show and all that good stuff.
All right. What's your personal story about your life?
It's like I love like stories like movie shows like American Horror Stories. Like I'm gonna do like different like situation like I'm writing a story right now called The People of Sherwood. So it's gonna be different characters or different people in a home.
love Anthony, a good horror story. So
it's mystery, it's crazy, it's a little fun. So I can't wait to share that with you guys next year.
Joy, Dr. Wilson, Alhaji, and Anthony, thank you so much for being on Business of Black. You guys stick around for Al, Funky, and Claudia Jordan for TGIF.